You don't move to a place like Rocky Hollow for ambition or fortune. You move here because you're tired. Tired of the noise, the endless hustle, the empty promises of bigger cities. You move here looking for something quieter, something real. I thought I'd found it when I bought that old house with the wraparound porch and the leaning oak tree out front. A little worn, a little rough around the edges. Like me, I wasn't looking for trouble. I was looking for a place to breathe again. But peace, real peace, doesn't just happen. Sometimes you have to stand your ground to keep it. Sometimes you have to remind the world, and yourself, that a home isn't just wooden nails. It's a line in the sand. And some lines aren't meant to be crossed. I didn't move to Rocky Hollow for drama. I came here for the quiet, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes the world feel simple again. A place where the days smelled like pine and wood smoke, and the nights were so still you could hear your own heart beating. After 15 years serving in the Army Rangers, I figured I'd earned a little peace. The house I bought was old, a Victorian relic with a wraparound porch and paint that peeled in lazy strips like sunburnt skin. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Every creaky floorboard, every bent nail. I planned to fix it up slow with my own two hands. Maybe teach myself how to carve the newel post someday. Maybe even find out who I was without a uniform. That was the plan anyway, until Veronica Hail showed up. It was a crisp Saturday morning, and I was tightening the bolts on the porch swing when I saw her. High heels clicking up the gravel clipboard under one arm, sunglasses big enough to land a plane on. She marched like she owned the place, like she owned me. I wiped my hands on my jeans and gave her a polite nod. She didn't return it. Instead, she lifted her chin and barked, "You need to stop all construction activities immediately. You're in violation of Rocky Hollow Civic Ordinance 47B. I blinked. "Come again." She shoved a piece of paper at me. It was printed in Comic Sans, for God's sake, and had a logo that looked suspiciously like it had been cut and pasted from a Google image search. "This is a protected heritage zone," she announced. "Modifications are subject to approval by the Rocky Hollow Property Council." I couldn't help it. I laughed. Not out of rudeness, but out of sheer disbelief. "There is no property council," I said, voice even. "Rocky Hollow doesn't have an HOA. I checked before I bought." Her face tightened. "We're forming one, and pending ratification, all structures are under provisional oversight." "Provisional oversight," I repeated, tasting the absurdity of it. She nodded solemnly, like she'd just quoted the Constitution. I looked at the swing, then back at her. "Lady, I'm fixing a porch swing, not building a casino." She bristled, tapping the clipboard like it was a loaded gun. "Non-compliance will be documented and forwarded to our enforcement team." I glanced down the road. The only enforcement team in sight was Bear, my lazy old German shepherd, currently sunbathing on the front steps. "I'll take my chances," I said quietly. She gave me a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "This isn't over, Mr. Cole. We're taking Rocky Hollow back, one house at a time." Then, she spun on her heel and disappeared down the road, heels stabbing at the gravel like it had personally offended her. I stood there for a long minute, the crisp autumn air buzzing in my ears, my gut telling me something I hadn't wanted to admit. Peace was about to become a battleground, and it had just come marching up my driveway, in Prada heels and a bad attitude. The thing about small towns is they notice. You hammer one crooked nail, someone 2 streets over will be talking about it by lunch. So when Veronica started her campaign, it didn't take long for whispers to turn into stares. At first, it was just the new family's folks who hadn't been around long enough to know Rocky Hollow's heartbeat. They clutched their reusable shopping bags and nodded nervously when Veronica handed them flyers, covered in fake bylaws and dire warnings about unauthorized modifications, threatening the historical integrity of the community. Within a week, laminated notices started popping up on telephone poles and mailboxes like a virus. "Preserve our heritage. No unauthorized changes. Community first." It would have been funny if it hadn't felt so calculated. Veronica wasn't just trying to scare me. She was trying to scare everyone. And people were starting to listen. A few neighbors stopped waving. Someone, still anonymous, filed a noise complaint about bear barking too loudly in the mornings. A drone buzzed over my property one afternoon, low enough that bear snapped at it. That night, I sat on the porch, coffee gone cold in my hands, and stared out across the dark fields. It wasn't just about me. It wasn't about the damn porch swing anymore. Veronica wanted Rocky Hollow itself, and she was willing to burn every front porch to the ground, if that's what it took. I called in the cavalry, not literal troops. Those days were behind me. But close enough, Logan was first to answer. Sheriff Logan Price, my old ranger buddy, who traded desert fatigues for a badge. His laugh was still easy, but there was iron behind his eyes. When I explained what was happening, he just said, "About time we had some fun around here." Maya Alvarez, sharp as a razor, joined next. She wasn't just a lawyer. She specialized in property law, civil rights. The stuff that really mattered when you were trying to protect what was yours. She didn't ask if I needed help. She asked, "How deep does this go?" And finally, Chris Lynn, the tech wizard who'd once hacked an insurgent's comm system with a second-hand laptop and a car battery in Kandahar. He didn't even wait for details. "Send me her name," he said. "I'll find everything." By the next evening, we had a war room set up right there on my porch. Laptops humming printouts spread across old wooden tables, coffee flowing like blood through veins. What we uncovered wasn't petty. Veronica wasn't just drunk on fake authority. She was scheming to create a special development zone, a move that would let her, and a handful of silent partners, seize control of multiple properties, including mine, under the guise of urban revitalization. The prize, a multi-million-dollar state grant designed to fund real, affordable housing projects. Except for Veronica's plans had nothing affordable about them. She intended to demolish historic homes, push out longtime residents, and build overpriced condos for out-of-towners looking for rustic charm with granite countertops. It wasn't preservation, it was conquest, thinly disguised behind laminated flyers and fake smiles. The realization settled heavy in my chest. This wasn't just my fight anymore. This was about saving the soul of Rocky Hollow. And if Veronica wanted a war, we were damn sure ready to give her one. The day of Veronica's community meeting dawned colder than expected, like even the town itself was holding its breath. She had rented out the old town hall, hung banners that screamed, "Save Rocky Hollow," in bold, anxious red. She even had a podium set up under an arch of artificial ivy, trying to turn a hostile takeover into a neighborhood picnic. But the thing about Rocky Hollow, you can dress up a lie, but you can't make it family. I showed up with Logan, Maya, and Chris by my side. No shouting, no bravado. Just the quiet weight of people who knew they were standing on the right side of something bigger than themselves, inside. Veronica was working the crowd, newcomers, mostly. People she had flooded with fear and half-truths. I recognized a few old neighbors, too, their faces pulled tight with uncertainty, their loyalty teetering. As Veronica launched into her speech, talking about community protection and necessary modernization, Chris slipped quietly toward the tech booth. A minute later, the projector screen behind her sputtered, and our evidence lit up the hall: photos, documents, emails showing the planned demolition orders, the luxury developer contracts, the false filings to the state grant committee. Then came the drone footage. Veronica's people surveying properties, trespassing onto private land with measuring tapes and clipboards, and finally, the audio recordings. Her voice clear and cold, boasting about pushing the old-timers out before they even know what hit them. The room went silent. You could hear every shuffle, every gasp, every whispered curse. Veronica whirled around, white as a sheet. "This is illegal," she shrieked. "This is invasion of privacy." Maya stepped forward, documents in hand. "Actually," she said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade, "what's illegal is fraud impersonating a government body and filing false documents with the state of Colorado. The sheriff's badge flashed at Logan's hip as he moved toward her. For the first time since she'd clicked her heels onto my porch, Veronica Hail looked small and very, very alone. "You're under investigation," Logan said calmly. "I suggest you get a lawyer. A real one." I thought she'd argue. I thought she'd scream. Dig her heels in one last time. But Veronica just stood there trembling as her perfect little empire crumbled around her. One by one, the townsfolk who had once nodded at her flyers quietly folded them up and dropped them into the nearest trash can. It wasn't a riot. It wasn't even loud. It was the sound of a community waking up, of a town remembering that it belonged to its people, not to the ones who screamed the loudest or printed the most papers. And just like that, Rocky Hollow reclaimed itself. Later that evening, the four of us sat back on my porch, the air crisp, the stars bruised against the velvet sky. Bear snored at my feet blissfully, unaware of the small revolution he had napped through. Neighbors stopped by one, some with pies, some with beer, all with grins that hadn't been seen around here in months. Someone had made a sign, rough cut out of old cedar planks, and planted it near my steps. Freedom Porch, where Rocky Hollow took its stand. I didn't ask for it. I didn't plan for it, but as I leaned back in my chair, coffee in hand, I realized something simple and true. Freedom doesn't shout. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't need laminated flyers or fake councils. Freedom stands quiet and unshakable, and sometimes all it takes is a swing, a dog, a few good friends, and the stubbornness to say, "Not here, not today, not ever."